if I'm running this business 10 years from now, we're going to do a whole bunch of other shit because we're relatively product led too. Which way do we go?
Isn't that the question? We kind of set out from day one and we said, like, these early stage subscription or membership businesses, they need payments, they need authentication, they need a CRM, they need email tools, and they need a help desk. Those are 5 things that are unequivocally needed to run one of these types of businesses. We said, let's smash all that together in a platform. That is what unlocked opportunity for us, and nobody does that. Nobody does that. It's hard to do. It's not easy to do, but that was the key to growing in a big way.
So what if you decide to bootstrap a company and your competition and really the thing you're building is to smash together Stripe and HubSpot? Well, that's my guest on the show this week. Geoff Roberts did exactly that with Outseta, and he's doing great. He's killing it. They're entirely bootstrapped. And this is a really great conversation to talk about kind of why this as a concept. What kind of challenges is he facing? We talk about kind of grading our business and like, hey, how good a business really is this? Why are we kind of where we're at in terms of revenue and profitability and stuff? How much of that outcome is a function of kind of the vessel that we're in and the business and the model and the people that we're serving? Talk a little bit about kind of AI, of course, and the impact that it's having on all of us. And really just kind of get into the mindset of a successful founder. You know, Geoff's someone and I follow on Twitter. We've had a lot of really great conversations, but this is the first time we've actually chatted, and it was really great. I have a new friend for sure, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Geoff. So like what are you working on right now with Outseta? I saw the new website come out. Like that's cool. Is that like part of a bigger thing that y'all are working on, or what's new today?
Not so much. We did just launch a new website that we're excited about. We'd had the previous version, I guess, for 3, almost 4 years. So it's just kind of time for a refresh, if you will. And we definitely had some marketing objectives that we wanted the new site to better fulfill. But what's going on internally with us is every quarter we set aside time to talk amongst our team about both salary increases for the existing team and where we want to invest in the business. And we're probably in the middle of like the most, I wouldn't say contentious, but
Most
rigorous debate about what our investments are going to be going into Q4 and Q1 and Q2. And the way that I would summarize it is, you know, we're an 8-year-old bootstrap company. There are, let's call it 5 things that we know we want to invest in. And these are not like pie in the sky, you know, these could work, these could not. These are things we know we should be investing in. And we can probably invest in 1.5 of them. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like. I would say the core of the issue, there's sort of 2 parts of it, is I am really the marketing founder. We are a very, very product focused team. There's really 6 of us. It's 4 engineers, a designer, and myself. And what that's, yeah.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
What that's meant in practice is I get pulled into all sorts of different areas of the business. I do operations. I do hiring to the extent that we do hiring, not that we do a lot. I do a ton of customer support. And the thing that is always falling by the wayside is marketing. The business has always kind of grown slowly and steadily. It's never been a rocket ship, but it's always grown. But we're at the point now where we feel really good about the product and we want to step on the gas, and the constraint is just time invested in marketing. So we're trying to essentially figure out how to free me up to spend a lot more time in marketing. And the big constraint for us is support and technical support specifically. So within the context of our business, we don't have a dedicated support function. That is very much by design. The entire team shares the support workload. But what that's looked like practically over the last 5-6 years is I try to do all the support that I possibly can so that my technical founders and the other engineers can work on product and keep pushing the product forward as much as possible. I'm sort of guarding them from the support queue to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah.
So We've got a little bit of money now, and we're trying to figure out where do we invest that? Do we hire a marketer? Do we hire some sort of junior developer and task them with kind of owning support and that kind of thing? Or do we add another team member to the team that's someone more experienced in a fractional capacity and expect them to contribute to support as well? We've got a lot of different opinions on how we solve for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys are 6 full-time people and maybe a couple contractors or whatnot. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So we're similar. We're 8 full-time people right now. Yeah. I'm the only marketing or salesperson. And I definitely feel you. The difference being we have 2 full-time support people.
Okay.
And so 0 of my time goes to support, or almost 0.
I envy you.
It's a message in Slack or, our Monday meeting where we kind of chat through stuff. It seems like such an obvious hire. Why not hire for support?
So there's a few things here. First of all, I think we will hire for support in some capacity. But we have this weird organizational model, which is a story in and of itself, but it's essentially a flat organization. We kind of hire the best people we can and let them contribute to the company where they're best able to. Everybody is paid the same. Everybody earns equity on the same terms. And they're pretty expensive hires. We pay everybody based off of a salary of $210,000 per year, and they can choose to work anywhere from 1 to 5 days a week. All of which means each new hire is relatively expensive and relatively senior. We're sort of out to prove that 20 experienced A players can compete with a more typical company of 100. So what that means is, we can hire somebody senior and experienced. We don't have the $210K to offer somebody a full-time position for this right now, but we could have somebody come in and do this, 2-3 days a week. The challenge with doing that is largely people of this experience level and pay rate don't really want to just be owning support. So if we went that route, we can say, okay, we could add another designer to the team or another developer, and they can spend part of their time doing support, and we get a little more support capacity in that way. The hallmark of our support, and I think it's a strength in our business, frankly, is if you reach out for support, you're getting someone on the other end who can actually solve your problem. There is no escalation. You're getting an engineer with 20 years of experience who can solve the problem, whatever it might be. And it's very attractive to continue to stick 100% to that model because it resonates with customers and we kind of fix issues the first time. On the other hand, I completely hear what you're saying. Why don't you just hire somebody to deal with this? And that's where the thought comes from, that we could be hiring somebody that is cheaper, that is a contractor, that gives us a lot more capacity, whose job is just to own the support queue and free myself and others on the team up from it as much as possible. It is a departure from what we're doing today, but that may very well be the right way to solve it.
It's funny, I want to yell at you right now. Just go hire. Okay, so a couple things. I'm very curious about the $210,000 number. Where'd you get that number? Why is everybody paid the same? I get a senior engineer. And you as a founder probably deserve that kind of money. But kind of where that number come from. But just some context. And I talk to a lot of different companies that hire for support through Tiny Seed and individual companies that I advise. And the kind of good ballpark number in the US for a full-time support person, salary only, so kind of fully baked, add 20%, is $50,000 a year.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think, and I hear you. Every time I have this conversation with someone, they yell at me, and it's warranted.
No, I don't want to be. I don't want to be that person. I'm honestly intrigued. But to me, maybe this is the time for a departure from that rule.
Yeah, it very well may be. That's ultimately what's being discussed. I will say, and everyone, but Rob Walling has pushed back on me on this, but I would say we've experimented now and we've sort of proven myself right. Our support tends to be very, very technical. sort of a blessing and a curse within our business is our product integrates with really any development framework, any website builder, any other
Yeah.
technology you want. So there's all these little nuances of how it integrates with different website builders and different code bases and whatnot. And it is pretty difficult to just find a person at a $50,000 salary that can contribute meaningfully to support and actually solving problems. Don't get me wrong, we have, basic tickets where our customers need a refund or whatever. There's certainly some of that, but that's not what's eating into our time. It is support where you need at least a junior engineer to really make a dent, I would say.
No, and I mean, surprisingly, we have quite a few technical issues. I think it's mostly like our integration with WordPress. Like people with WordPress do all sorts of things to WordPress that screw up our stuff.
Yep.
And I mean, so our two customer support folks right now, one is also kind of doubling as our QA person, and she's writing code and tests and things like that. She's like grown into this role. And so maybe that's kind of a model. It's like find somebody who's intellectually curious and ambitious to kind of grow into that. The other one is, and he will tell you, like, if he's listening right now, he's not and doesn't want to be, but has leveled himself up enough to where he does kind of what you're doing, which is like, hey, I'm gonna knock out this ticket and this ticket and this ticket, but I know I can't do that ticket.
Yep.
So I'll get the information I need, tee it up for the developer so they can spend 10 minutes looking at it instead of 45.
Totally.
Which is like, because like, we have like a WordPress developer who manages like our plugin and a lot of the technical support there. And he does technical support directly with customers a lot. And like our support folks bring things to the development team every day. Like that's by far the most talked about topic in Slack is, hey, I got a customer with this thing, or hey, we got this Sentry issue, like blah, 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 blah. Like, so it definitely bounces around in the team a lot, but not to me at all.
That's nice. I hope we get there.
That'd
be a good
cool.
place.
Cool. I didn't mean to like go down that road to like badger you on it too much, but if it's a discussion internally, like, that is some kind of source of tension, right? So like, I hope you guys are able to resolve that and to where everyone's happy.
Yeah, it is. And then in tandem with that, I didn't mean to dodge your question on the $210,000 salary. Honestly, that is largely plucked out of thin air. We said that we wanted to operate this sort of smaller, tight-knit team. We don't want to grow the company large from a headcount perspective. And we said, what is a salary that will attract good people? So if you work 5 days a week and it's all for paid compensation, it's $210,000 a year. You also can earn equity for X number of days per week if you want to. So we call it kind of a choose your own adventure compensation model. You sign on and you say, I want to work 1 day a week for equity and 4 for pay. And you pick what works for you. And then we revisit that quarterly with the team as well too. So as we grow, as we make more money every quarter, we sit down and we say, we grew MRR by X amount. Where do we want to invest? And that investment typically gets split between pay increases for the team, if people are looking for pay increases, and then investments in other parts of the business. So, right now, that's the ongoing conversation. It's we've got a lot of people that have been on the team for years that are excited about pay increases, and we want to give those, but we also recognize we're sort of perpetually overstretched and we need to be doing more marketing. We could use a hand in support, whether it, regardless of how we solve for that. So it's very much just like the constraints of bootstrapping and, picking where those investments go.
I like it. I like the bit of like mix up in culture and company setup. I think that's cool. It also is cool. It sounds like you guys are going down this path, but not like blindly and not like we're going to do this no matter what. If, a good reason to do something different comes up, like totally. I'm sure it sounds like you guys would kind of pivot a bit. Yeah.
Yep.
I want to talk about marketing. I don't want to just ask about, like, I want to talk about, because like I have a lot of, I talk a lot about marketing. I think a lot about marketing. I'm the only kind of sales and marketing person on the team, full time. We have a couple of contractors that help. Dennis helps with writing. We have someone that helps with SEO.
Yeah.
We're starting to do some PPC now. But I kind like just generally, like I see marketing is really tough these days. Like I see The path we largely have taken was like SEO and written content was like really important.
Sure.
A little bit of podcasting and YouTube thrown in there. That like those aren't really driving a lot. SEO is like it's tough these days. Like
Yep.
whatever. We don't have so far to go from here. Like we can't triple our SEO blueprint, if you will, or a footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I guess like the statement that I kind of have, and that like a lot of founders I talk to have, is like, I want to invest in marketing, but I don't know that like if I go hire this $100,000 a year person, they're going to even pay for themselves, much less like way more than that. That's definitely how I feel, which is why like we've had marketing people on the team before, and we had to let them go, unfortunately, because like they just weren't growing the business that much.
Yep.
And now it's just me, and largely things are about the same.
Yep.
It's just me working more, which like maybe what I'm doing doesn't matter either. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, how do you see that? Because like I have to believe that the business can really grow. We didn't grow a ton. We grew about like 10% last year.
Sure.
I'd love to grow 50%, but I don't know that there's like a person to hire or a thing to do to make that happen. I don't know. How do you see it?
Yeah, there's two places my mind immediately goes. One is looking at growth more holistically than just marketing. So, yes, marketing is a piece of the puzzle, and we'll get there in a second. But I would, also just be looking at churn rates, add-on products, pricing, all those kinds of things as potential levers for growth. I would even go so far to say it's like particularly in past roles in fast growing companies, every SaaS business goes through this period of growth and then plateaus, and then a period of growth and then plateaus. It has almost never been drastic improvements in marketing that have broken through growth plateaus for me. It has been pricing changes, onboarding updates, improvements in the user experience of the product. So I probably have more of a tendency than your average marketer to look at those things if you kind of see that growth has slowed.
Yeah.
And use those as means of rebooting things. On the marketing front, I would definitely just look at this assumption that like there isn't that much more room to grow, whether it's SEO or any other channel. What leads you to believe that you've hit that upper bound, and let's say you have this theory that you've gotten 80% of the juice you can squeeze out of SEO and there's only 20% left? Like, what is actually contributing to that feeling? And you may very well be right. Like, there are times you can tell that, not just from how it feels in the market, but you can like actually put metrics behind it, and that's just the case.
Yeah.
But I've also seen those assumptions be wrong a lot. At a previous company, it was called Buildium. We saw this in particular with PPC, and we should talk about PPC in a minute because everybody rags on PPC.
Oh, I love PPC. I'd love to make, like, I would love nothing more than to make it work. Yeah.
I love PPC too. We're not doing a whole lot at Outseta today, but I have a strong opinion on it in general. At that business, one of the co-founders was running paid search campaigns to about $4,000 or $5,000 a month in spending. Came to me, basically said, "We've reached the potential of this channel. We have to look elsewhere." Turns out he was wrong. It wasn't any great doing of mine. It was more great doing of an agency, to be frank. But we ended up spending $120,000 a month, very, very, very awesome. Profitably. So there was a lot more growth potential there than he thought. And a lot of that just kind of being representative of where these opportunities might lie. You might look at your paid spend, for example, and say, we've tapped out the opportunity that these very targeted keywords represent. We've done a lot of landing page optimization and all that kind of stuff, and we just can't move the needle. What actually contributed to this building, or this company kind of breaking through with pay-per-click so directly, was folding a lot more data into the pay-per-click model. So Previously, they were looking at, the price of the product that was sold. They were not looking at expansion revenue over time and tying that back to cohorts of pay-per-click spending. They were not folding in churn data. So basically, they had an understanding of the profitability of our pay-per-click programs that were not as accurate as they could be. And as we made improvements reducing churn, as we got better at selling add-on products, there was actually a lot more opportunity for us to spend much more aggressively than we initially thought. And it might not be the case with you, but I think that's a good example of just kind of pressure testing some of these assumptions on where you might have hit the ceiling on a growth channel.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think for me, SEO specifically, like one, I kind of just have like it's actually a really challenging kind of mental conundrum, right? Where like it's gotten us where we are today, which is like a pretty successful business, I think.
Yeah.
But like the own data I have, we've hired several SEO folks recently who are just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're doing pretty good. Like, you could maybe tweak this knob over here, and maybe you could rank from like 7 to 4 on this one. But like, we're at that point where it's like, we've written all the shit we can write pretty much.
Sure.
We are, ranking for all the things that we realistically think we can rank for. Like, sure, like recently we kind of got hit by an update, and so we need to get back there. But like, it's not like we have the next 3 years of SEO work ahead of us.
Sure.
So that's like the data. The other part is like just like buyer behavior and marketing, like at a conceptual level, I kind of just don't believe in it anymore. Like, I don't ever go to Google to look for the answer for something anymore.
Sure.
And I think you see that with just like search traffic overall going down, not to mention fucking what happens when you go to Google is like generative AI and then like paid results and then fucking Reddit. And then maybe your website.
Sure.
And so I'll just tell you, like, aside from pay-per-click, which like I'd love to talk about, the big organic driver we're seeing is YouTube.
Okay.
And that we want to see. I think it aligns really well with like our product, and all of our customers are, on YouTube doing podcasting stuff and are probably big content consumers, but also like, I mean, I just bought like another microphone, and we're going to do like all these microphone tests, and we're like, we're doing all these video tests, and like, we just have so much we can talk about to make probably a pretty successful channel. So like, that's where I'm investing a lot of my personal time. Is like, my hypothesis is like, we get 100,000 uniques a month on our website. If we get 100,000 subscribers to our channel, it'll do something meaningful to the business.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting. I am generally very hot on YouTube as well. I would even say, like, at the beginning of 2024, one of the things I was preaching was we need to really invest more heavily in YouTube. Like, YouTube is, one of the biggest search engines in the world. I also very much subscribe to this notion that because video is hard, if you take the time to do it well and compete, there's opportunity there because other people don't want to do that. Frankly, at least within the context of our own business, and this ties back to I'm not spending enough time on marketing, we kind of punted on YouTube because it was so time consuming. Like I got the video set up, I started doing some videos, and I was just like, you know what, this is so time consuming, I just don't have time for it. And I've actually kind of done a 360 with Outseta. My background is in writing. Like, I went to school and was actually a writing major. Most of our customer acquisition has come from content marketing and content that I've written myself. But we are actually seeing that is now being even more beneficial to us, not from the perspective of SEO, but from the perspective of all that written content is getting eaten up by AI, and customers are finding us via AI. So that was kind of a like unexpected benefit of just writing so much all along. But I would love if I do manage to solve this support issue to get into YouTube more as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's literally the only reason that like we re-engaged our SEO guy and that we have our writer on still is like, Yeah, I had a call earlier this week with a pretty big opportunity. Hey, how'd you find out about us? ChatGPT.
Tons of that. We're seeing a
So
lot of
that's
that
like
right
a
now.
10K a year opportunity. Like there's the writer for the year.
Yep. Yep.
So we're probably similar to you, like the point where like the most value probably we have in written content is just keeping the shit we have really good.
Sure. Yep.
It's not, hey, we got to go write 200 more articles. It's like, hey, these 30 articles are really important. They got to stay on the first page
For sure.
because, ChatGPT is crawling kind of the first page or the first three results typically or something. So cool. So let's talk pay per click. I'm in the Rhodium group. I don't know if you know Rhodium. It's like a
I don't know.
microconfy kind of thing, mostly for kind of like acquisition stuff.
Okay.
Chris Yates. And Chris connected me with like a PPC guy there. And I was like, hey, like I would love to put 20 grand a month into AdWords or Meta or whatever and
Sure.
get 25 grand out a couple months later. He goes, this guy I was talking to goes, you can't acquire a customer in SaaS for less than $200. I was like, that's rough when we charge $190 a year.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. Like, is that your experience? Like, is it that expensive these days?
I think it varies drastically by the market that you're in, and
Okay.
how competitive the market that you're in is. I understand the sentiment completely. I don't think the sentiment is incorrect, but if it costs you $200 to acquire a customer and the lifetime value of the customer is $3,000, who gives a shit? So I think
Yeah.
it's you've got to take the time to track specific cohorts of spending versus the actual lifetime value of those cohorts over time. That is the only way to do this successfully. If you're just looking at cost per click and cost per acquisition and all of that, you're going to get all false positives or all false negatives more likely.
How do you track that stuff all the way through? Like, you're using a tool, or are you all doing that yourself? Like, just to know from this campaign, these customers came in and paid us this money.
Yeah, the most sophisticated, like the journey I spoke to earlier before, where we went from 4,000 or 5,000 a month to 120,000 a month. We were working with an agency. I tell people all the time, if I can give you any referral, like this is probably the strongest referral I can give in any aspect of SaaS. It's a company. It's actually based in Rhode Island. Now that you mentioned you're from Rhode Island, called Working Planet Marketing Group. And there's a guy, his name is Soren Reiherd, who runs it. He is probably he's definitely the single smartest mind that I have ever come across when it comes to paid digital advertising. And he worked with me. I was kind of like the, on the ground marketing director. But he worked with me to scale up those campaigns. And I'm the first one to tell you, like, everything you're told about testing different channels and different messages and different landing pages and all of that, that is a prerequisite for doing pay-per-click successfully. Like, yes, you need to do those things. But it really is, and I know they used a tool called Conversion Ruler on the back end. But basically any click that turned into a sale, we would continue to track, all the way through their lifetime as a customer, what the actual value of each customer was. And we would tie it back to the initial ad campaign and a initial month that the spend was incurred. And that is what unlocked opportunity for us. And nobody does that. Nobody does that. It's hard to do. It's not easy to do, but that was the key to growing in a big way.
Yeah. Interesting. I know that, someone I've known for a while, they're part of Tiny Seed now, just coincidentally, Keith Perhack and segmetrics.io, I think.
Yep.
They do a bit of this. Like, they'll take and they'll cookie someone on the website, and then they'll pipe that information through from Stripe. So they take it from AdWords to the website to Stripe and kind of track those things.
Yeah.
And there's, I know that, like, if we get kind of bigger into paid acquisition, we'll need to have that level of data. We're currently kind of looking at paid acquisition just for our production services. So like, we do podcast editing production. It's a bigger ticket. It's like $1,500.
Sure.
So we can be a little dumb about it and pay $200 $200 to acquire a customer would be amazing. Like I do a shit ton of that. Even if it's $500, we get paid back in the first month.
Yep. That makes sense to me.
So what do you guys look at? I know you and I chatted once before. Like, what do you guys think about as far as like how you position yourself in the market? Because like it's a thing we think about a lot. And I'll just give some context for this. We've seen the bundling and unbundling, and now I think rebundling of software in our customers' eyes. They're like, whatever. I don't know. They're changing their mind. We're changing mind for them, maybe. But I see these tools like HubSpot's the classic example, or Kajabi on the info product side, where it's like a CRM and it's a landing page thing and it's email and it's podcasting and it's all this shit. And it's $200 a month or something like that. Or you could go, do Webflow and ConvertKit and blah, 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 blah. And it all kind of be better in a way, but kind of suck because the data doesn't really talk.
Yep.
We're looking at a similar thing with Castos, where it's like we're a podcasting platform today, but like, what else do podcasters do? Right? They do social media. If you look at it like horizontally or vertically, like vertically, they record, they edit, they publish, which is where we are. They do promotion and ads, which we do. Or horizontally, like they do email marketing, they do landing pages, they do email capture, they do fucking social media, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Right now we're just in this box, but I look at it and say, we're also 8 years old. If I'm running this business 10 years from now, we're going to do a whole bunch of other shit because we're relatively product led too. Which way do we go?
Isn't that the question? That's a tough one. So Outseta is clearly on one side of the spectrum. We're the all-in-one player. In many ways, Outseta is what HubSpot grew into. We kind of set out from day one and we said, like, these early stage subscription or membership businesses, they need payments, they need authentication, they need a CRM, they need email tools, and they need a help desk. Those are 5 things that are unequivocally needed to run one of these types of businesses. We said, let's smash all that together in a platform and build essentially like the Shopify for subscription businesses. That's the origin story of the company in short. I would tell you, first of all, HubSpot's a $2 billion company, and we're here rubbing our pennies together.
A little tiny HubSpot, maybe.
Yeah. So that maybe tells you something in and of itself. But I would tell you that the way that we did it, first of all, it's hard because you've got to build a lot at an early stage to even get to the point where the product is competitive. How I summarize our journey is it took us 2 years to even build an MVP, frankly, and really 4 years to get the product to the point where people were buying it and happy with it and all that kind of stuff. And those 2 years in between years 2 and 4, what we learned the hard way was we were trying to change developers' default behaviors. We were selling to SaaS companies and largely technical founders. And we were saying, your time spent sewing all these systems together isn't where you should be spending your time. You should be spending your time on product. And we learned the hard way that, even if the developer looked me in the eye and said, you're right, I know from an intellectual standpoint, you're right. Developers just like to build stuff and they have the technical skill set to do it. So they're going to do it anyways. What really kickstarted our growth in a significant way was we found a similar market in what we call membership sites now, where the use case is the same. They need the payments, they need the authentication, they need the CRM, they need the email, etc. But they are less technical founders that just don't have the skill set to assemble all of these tools. So the all-in-one nature of our product is almost like a prerequisite. It's just frankly something that they need. Also, I think in our case, we sell to smaller businesses, and the sort of easy to start integrated nature of the tools is more attractive to them. They don't need all of the bells and whistles of, say, a HubSpot. They need more of the core features. So I think for kind of the customer that we ended up serving, being this all-in-one type product and positioning ourselves that way and admitting we don't have all the bells and whistles of a HubSpot has actually helped us. I can't say like that was deliberately the strategy at the outset. That's kind of like where we found our way to make the business work. But I think there's something there about the sophistication of the customers and this, the stage of the business and the complexity of their needs. The further up market you go, I think the more likely people are to kind of piecemeal stuff together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, less technical, or early on they'll go for an all-in-one solution. As they get more sophisticated, they want to specialize. Yeah, I agree. What do you what do you guys look at? Like 8 years old, successful, profitable, growing. What do you look at? You go like another 8 years? Like what's that going to take?
Yeah, we really said when we set out, the entire reason that we built this particular idea is we said we want to work on something together for 15 years. What's going to be relevant 15 years from now? in the tech industry, that like it's a tough question, but we basically said companies are going to need payments and CRM and email. Like we don't think those things are going away. So we picked the idea because we thought it was durable. We certainly, got what we bargained for in terms of biting off something big and substantial. We actually turn 8 years old next week. And I think the mindset very much remains unchanged. It's like, we're going to do this for 7 more years. We're going to look up. And if we've executed well, we're going to have all sorts of good opportunities. Yeah. I do think we are at sort of this, sort of at a natural transit. I don't know if natural is the right word, but we're at a transition point where we've been really like 90% product focused to date and maybe 10% growth focused. And we're almost ready to flip that. Yeah. So that's kind of the name of the game for us. I mean, we are, as you said, we've grown well, we're profitable, we're supporting a small team. The business still does not have a ton of margin. No one's like, we pay everybody well, but like, we're not like rolling in money over here by any means. I think there's also just in tandem with that focus on growth. We're at the point where I want to see this thing grow in a significant way to reward the employees that have worked their butts off for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I don't have like a end goal per se in mind. I've always liked the idea of, can we build a $10 million a year business with 20 employees? I think if we can get to that stage within the next 7 years, that to me would be a pretty cool scenario.
Yeah. You mentioned margin, and like we've been kind of like break even, slightly profitable, of late. I don't talk to a bunch of SaaS companies that are mega profitable. You got to keep investing in product. You got customer support. You got all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Do you like SaaS as a business model?
There are pros and cons to it. I do, people love the story, but I do have a friend. Everyone says SaaS is the best business model. I have a friend that's found a far better business model. But SaaS
mobile home and parks, or
we can get into it if you want, but SaaS is pretty damn good in the sense that if you're able to build a product with relatively low churn, which is a big if in and of itself, your efforts compound and the value of the business is 5x revenue. There's not a lot of other businesses where you get kind of that valuation and where your effort compounds in the same way. So I love that aspect of SaaS, and anybody that points their nose up at that is just flat out wrong. I will say that I think SaaS is overrated in the sense that at this point it is just so competitive and there's so many talented people in SaaS. So if you go back 10 years, just the competition and the quality of the execution needed to be in the top 10% of SaaS companies was so much lower than it is today. It is, you're out there, and unless you find some really underserved market that hasn't kind of been discovered from a SaaS perspective yet, it's tough.
Yeah, I agree. I got to hear about your friends. I have a couple. I have a couple friends that have good businesses. One is definitely like mobile home parks. I have a friend that owns several of them down in Florida, and they are amazing businesses. Like, I don't know how they are this week after the hurricane.
Yep.
Actually, most of my friends with really good businesses are in real estate. Another one owns a handful of apartment buildings. And like that's a very large business that's super durable, right? Like that will pass down to their kids and stuff.
Yeah. I have to skirt it a little bit, but I'll give you the gist of
Yeah.
it. My friend is a recruiter, and he works placing medical professionals in government facilities that are generally jobs that, if you're a medical professional, you don't want. So
I'm intrigued.
it's tough to fill these positions, but because they are government funded and they're tough to fill, the government pays these people enormous sums of money. And the business model is, for every hour that one of these employees works, my friend makes 20% of their paycheck. So these are often like $1,000, $2,000 an hour positions, and he's got hundreds of these people working at any given time, and he's making
Wow.
20% of their salary. So the numbers just work, and they beyond work. And it's kind of an unsexy, non-obvious thing. So he has basically no competition.
Yeah.
So
I do think that's a common theme of like really good businesses is they are often unsexy, you Cody Sanchez kind of thing. I was chatting with Rob Walling. I was in Minnesota a couple weeks ago and was chatting with him about it. And he was like, the problem with a lot of the SaaS, like new SaaS founders, is they all want to be creators. They all want to be, Peter Levels or whatever, or Arvid Kahl. We were talking about him earlier. A good friend, right? Like he's a super good friend, but like, I think a lot of people want to kind of sexify SaaS.
Totally. So I'll give you two thoughts on that. One is just back to my friend's business model. The way that I describe it, and Jason Cohen has a great article on like how to expand your thinking and just think much bigger and sort of think of radical ideas. He has a business model that is very much like SaaS in terms of the recurring component, except it recurs hourly instead of monthly. So like if you just take that and say, okay, SaaS is great for all these reasons. It's scalable, yes, and it recurs monthly. What if something recurred weekly or hourly or minute or every minute? Like that's ultimately why he's making so much money. Yeah. So on that, that's totally accurate. Obviously, the company I referenced previously, Buildium, was sort of where I cut my teeth in SaaS. It was property management software, which property management is like the least sexy industry in the world. And the origin story, my co-founder at Outseta now, his name is Dimitri. He started this company. He owned a couple of duplexes in Providence, Rhode Island, actually. And, when he had 2 tenants, it was easy to figure out who paid rent. And, if they had a maintenance request, they picked up the phone and called him. Next thing you know, he had 20 tenants, and it was tough to keep track of who'd paid rent. And he had his phone ringing constantly with people telling him that the toilet was leaking. Yeah. So he was a software engineer. He wrote a simple script that allowed his tenants to pay him rent online and streamline maintenance requests. They could sort of like submit an email request for maintenance. Turned into a $600 million a year business. And that is actually like the thread that I see, especially at MicroConf, actually. If you talk to the founders that are actually the successful founders, the thread in them these days tends to be they're serving some obscure industry and they're not trying to be Arvid Kahl.
Yeah. Arvid, if you're listening, man, like love you. Like he was on a webinar with us this week, and talked to him a lot. But yeah, I think that, a bit like, for Outseta or for Castos, like we're barking up the wrong tree in that respect. Like we went for a cool, sexy, product and market, and it's more competitive in that there's a lot of people and they're really smart, right? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
some of the companies we go up against are really good product and marketing people.
I mean,
If
man,
you're,
our competitors are Stripe and HubSpot and
yeah, yeah.
companies like that.
Yeah.
I'm actually writing an article on this right now. Like the single biggest lesson I would say I have learned from my Outseta experience is I made one great decision and one bad decision. The reason that I ultimately chose to work on this product was the two co-founders that uh, I decided to work together with. They're both engineers. They're both as good of engineers as there are out there. I was philosophically aligned with them. And I looked at it like I was removing a variable from the equation. I said, I
Hmm.
know engineering is not going to be a problem. And having worked in other companies with lesser engineering teams, I had sort of seen the drag that that can create. I said, I know these guys, whatever we build, they're going to build something great. And ultimately, that was like the number one reason I signed on to start Outseta. I knew at the time that Outseta was not a great business idea. In
Mm.
fact, if you look at our blog, the second post I ever wrote was like, here's all my reservations with this idea. And it's like small market, competitive, selling to startups, all these reasons this idea sucks. And this idea does suck, to be honest with you. It's not a good, it's not a great startup idea. There's a lot of things working against it. We have like managed to make it work and built a viable business around it. But man, if we had picked something else, we could have grown so much faster in markets that were less competitive. And I would say like the good decision was yes, team matters and engineering team matters, but it can't trump market. Like at the end of the day, the market you choose is as important as anything.
Yeah, I call it the boat you're in, right? Like the boat you're in is okay. I know we're like running long, but I really want to touch on this. I talked to Dan Andrews when we had our conversation about this, and like grade your business. I'm not going to ask you to grade your business,
Sure.
but I think the next question after that is important. Is I think my business is like a B, right? Like low
Sure.
churn, really cool customers, pretty popular, not growing right now. Podcasting not growing, but
Yep.
mature, relatively low platform risk.
Yeah.
Whatever, pretty good business. I give it a B. Why don't I sell it, close it down, whatever, and go after an A?
Sure.
I ask myself that a lot, to be honest, because like I'm a pretty smart guy and like have built a successful business. And if like I don't see this being a $10 million a year company, like
Yep.
maybe it could be a 10, maybe like five's pretty realistic,
Mm-hmm.
but 10's definitely not.
Okay.
Why don't I shut this down? Why don't you shut Outseta down and go do something that could be a $50 million a year business?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I do believe that Outseta can be a $10 million a year business. I mean, HubSpot is not a great comp because they're playing way up market of us. But
Yeah, yeah. Then they were early and yeah.
and they were early and all that stuff. But I do still look at it. It's like they're making billions of dollars a year selling CRM and email and help desk products. Like we can sell 10. I do see that as very very possible. I think the better question is like we are not in an A plus business or business opportunity or market. I'll tell you that right away. Not even close. Why don't you leave and go find it? I think for me it comes down to a couple things. One is my motivation has never been like let's go find the biggest most successful thing possible. That like
Yeah.
I'm just not wired that way.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I want Outseta to be a big success, but like it wouldn't make any difference to me if it was 100 million versus 500 million versus 2 billion. Like I could just care less. And that part is very clear. The other part honestly is not a great answer, and it's a little bit of stubbornness and sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
And like I've just already put 8 years into this. For better or worse, I'm just going to stick at it and keep pushing and see where we can take it. Like it's not so much that it's my baby and I love it and like I need to
Yeah.
nurture it, although there's some of that too. it is really just kind of like a stubborn streak that I know we have something that's pretty good now and we can continue to make it better. And I don't want to throw away or discount that we've already put a lot of like time and effort and hard work into it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also, I have a bit of, I have quite a bit of imposter syndrome, and I don't know that I could get back to this point with another opportunity. You see lots of, like I heard the other day, like the failure rate on second time founders is 70%. Like, wow. Like I know the
Yep.
first time is 90+%, but like you don't get that much better the second time.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and so I do the kind of bird in the hand is worth two in the bush kind of thing a little bit, like a
Yep.
lot. That's probably the biggest reason. Yeah, that's probably like the biggest reason is like, yeah, it's a pretty good business. Could it be an amazing business if I, pivoted and did something else? I don't know. The other thing is I'm 44 years old and I don't know. I could go back to day one and do
Yeah.
the shit that I did 8 years ago. Like all this gray hair has cast us, most of it, like some of it has my kids on it, but yeah, I think I've just passed that point in my career. I think that's the other part is like, I'm not 32 years old anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. My co-founder Dimitri is a great example of this. He started this company, Buildium. He worked at it for 15 years. It was a $600 million exit. Turned around and started Outseta, and he's an infinitely more talented operator, developer, entrepreneur, having had that previous 15 years of experience, but we haven't had anywhere near the type of success that business had. Again, like we've made it work. We have a successful enough business, but I think that goes back to a lot of it is market. A lot of it is, he started
or timing, right? It's just harder
timing.
now. Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that go into it. And I also agree with you. Even at this point, I'm 38. I've been in SaaS for 15 years now. It's been the entirety of my career. I love startups genuinely. I don't have a particular affliction towards SaaS. Like SaaS is the business model I know. Obviously, I know how to work within the context of these companies and operate these companies. But my mindset is very much, I'm going to work on Outseta for the next 7 years. It's going to end up wherever it ends up. And I will probably go off and do something different afterwards, to be honest with you. Not because I don't like it. I very much enjoy the work, but more so because at that point I will have spent, 20, 25 years building SaaS startups and just want to try something new.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll wrap us up here with one of the few podcasts I actually listen to is John Warrillow. It's Built to Sell. Mostly just kind of like entrepreneur people talking about their exits. But he has this framework of like your career goes in 10-year cycles.
Yep.
And it tracks for me. My first 10 years, I was doing something totally different in the medical field, right? Actually in San Diego, lived there for a while. Now I'm in this phase for 8 years. It'll probably be more than 10 years, but probably not like a lot more. Actively like in the business maintain. Maybe Castos will go on with me as the owner forever, but I won't be day to day fucking recording YouTube and managing the team and stuff for 5 more years probably. And so like, I do think that 10-year mark, there's something about that. Like there's something about like a 5-year mark in a business where like you can build it, you can grow it, you can scale it, you can prep it, and you can sell it. 5 years is a pretty good number. We all should have sold at 5 years because that would have been the fucking peak of the market. But and then there's something else as a person around 10 years, I think.
Totally.
Which is probably what you're seeing, and your role in Outseta at 10 years will probably change quite a bit to kind of like that Jason Cohen advisor level or owner level.
I think it probably will. I hope it will. And funnily enough, I never take calls with investors really. But I took one a couple of weeks ago for various reasons. It was just very relevant and someone I was interested in saying hi to. And really the very first thing they said to me is they're like, you're like 8-9 years into this thing now. They're like, you're probably ready to take some money off the table and let someone else operate this business. I was like, that's your angle, isn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, that was funny.
This ain't your first day. That's awesome. All right, buddy. So outseta.com, folks want to check you guys out. Where's the best place for folks to connect otherwise?
You can find me on Twitter. My name is Geoff, but I'm a Geoff, so it's at Geoff T Roberts on Twitter. That's probably the best place otherwise.
Cool. Awesome, buddy. I appreciate it.
Good chatting with you, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
See ya.